in 2021, we got a call in the middle of the night from my sister who is on this call, and she'll be sharing her story, but just small just before it starts. And it was her, and she wasn't really making any sense. She was just like, mommy, they are coming to get me. People are coming to get me. Your voices are changing. Um, I'm on the wall. She was saying a lot of stuff, and we couldn't really make sense of what she was saying. But we were able to get her location. We were able to get where she was, and we kept asking, Jenny, what's wrong? What Jenny, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? What are you saying? What's going on? And we couldn't really. She couldn't communicate to us how she was feeling. Well, she was communicating to us in effect how she was feeling, but she couldn't communicate to us any sense. She wasn't making any sense, and we couldn't understand her. But we were somehow, my brother was able to get the person she was staying with, and we shipped her down to Lagos like that day. And we kind of thought that, oh, it was just a breakdown, like a stress breakdown in the middle of the night, because she was in part five and she was learning how to be a programmer as well. So a lot of stuff was going on with her. And we just thought, oh, it's a stress breakdown. At least I thought that after she had slept, that's finished. But we did not know that it was going to be the beginning of a very long and very stressful journey. And so when she came home that day, we were able to sedate her because she was a bit panicky. And then she slept. Upon all after being actually sedated, she only slept for about 1 or 2 hours. And then just so much went on. So much went on. And we eventually ended up having to sedate her again because she just was completely in a panic. She was completely frantic. And so she got better. And then after that, she had another breakdown again. So this webinar is basically just going to be us chronicling. We will go into more detail as it goes on, but I'm just giving you like a rough welcome. And so this webinar is going to be us going into detail on what happened, why it happened, how we can help, how we can stop it from happening to other people, and basically just educate people on mental health problems. Because in the course of planning this webinar, so many people have reached out to me and told me, stuff that is going on with them. We had an anonymous link out, and a lot of people, I got to see a lot of people's stories and their perspectives, and I was just like, oh my God, wow, people are really going through a lot. People are going through a lot. And so Nigerians aren't really equipped to handle mental health issues. They just kind of hi Tofumi, please turn off your camera. Thank you. They just kind of slap oh God, they just kind of slap, a band-aid on it and hope that it goes away. And it never actually goes away. And so yeah, that's why we're here today. Thankfully, she's all right now, and everything is worked out. So we'll be bringing up our first speaker very soon. Our first speaker is Pastor Hussein MJ. Okay, I have the pleasure of bringing on my pastor. The reason why I have mine to do this webinar, Pastor has pastored both me and my sister since 2021, and he was present throughout all of this. And he's in an amazing position to speak, as someone who has both experienced it through our eyes, and as someone who has coached like a lot of people through their own mental health problems. And many Christians don't know how to handle faith and mental health, and Pastor will be shedding a lot of light on that for us today. So with big joy, we will be presenting Pastor Hussein MJ. Okay.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Um, Once again, good morning, everybody. I am very excited for the privilege to be here to speak, um, just basically speak here. And again, every time I have an opportunity to talk in meetings like this or in gatherings like this, I'm always I always treat it with a sense of care, because there are many people who are listening, and that who knows what one may say that will be healing, and that will be a source of healing to someone who is listening. So I was given a topic. My topic was how faith influences or should influence perspective on mental health. Okay. So there is one popular crazy person in the Bible. Um, uh, I'm I'm purposely using the word crazy. It's like somebody's cooking beans in the background. I'm purposely using the word crazy, especially because of the fact that um, it has been it was used in the cover and all. And for all of us who are here, it means that the word crazy doesn't shouldn't be offensive, as it were. So I'm just going to stick to the term that was used in the design. So there are there is one particularly interesting crazy person in the Bible, and that person um, is the madman at Gadara. All right, the madman at Gadara, and the madman at Gadara, um, very interesting. He, the Bible gives us the explanation of how he lost his mind, and the Bible says that he was influenced by demons. Demons entered into his um, of course, demons took over his mind, and then he lost his mind, and he was living by um, the tomb, and not living by himself. And then, of course, the story goes that Jesus is coming along the way, and the dude sees Jesus, and so he runs over to Jesus. And it's interesting. While a lot of the story has the casting out of the demons, or get out of him, and all of that, one very interesting thing for me in the story is that they actually have a conversation while he's still in that state. It's interesting that nobody passes through that way, but Jesus goes through that way. All right. Jesus passes by that way. Again, scriptures clearly makes it very clear that nobody goes through that road. All right. Why? The guy's a madman, crazy guy, and everybody has left him by himself. And that's the path that Jesus goes through. I'm not even trying to make anything out of it. I'm just retelling the story for those of us who already know the story. For those of us who don't know the story, maybe Vic is going to give us a link to the story eventually. But the point is, Jesus goes by the way that nobody goes by, and he goes by the way that nobody goes by. He meets the madman at Gadara, and a conversation begins. Of course, and the Bible says that Jesus begins to talk to him and asks him who he is, and the guy describes himself, or he describes himself, and through the personality of the demons that and I'm using the word demons again in quotes because that's what scriptures refer to it as. And so he says, "Oh, we are legion." Of course, and that looks like some form of split personality disorder of some sort. And so he says, "Oh, we are legion, we're many in there." And he and Jesus begins a conversation. Jesus tells the demons inside of him to check out, and the demons begin to talk with Jesus and begin to negotiate with Jesus and ask for where they want to go into. And Jesus orders them to go to the pigs that were there. And so those demons run into the pigs that are there, and the pigs die. And of course, the man comes back to his right senses. So a lot of people who are Christians who have read scriptures usually draw their perspective of mental health from the fact that, oh, one, The guy had a demon inside of him, or had demons inside of him. So the natural expectation for some of us who are Christians is that always someone has lost his mind. He probably has a demon inside of him, or has demons inside of him. Um, that also shows us the worldview of the people who saw the man who was a madman at the Dara. Of course, the interaction Jesus has with him, Jesus chases what was inside of him out and all. But my perspective is a little bit is a little bit rounded, or a little bit, or let me not use the word a little bit rounded. There are a few more aspects that I consider whenever I think of that story. So there is another madman in the Bible. Um, another madman in the Bible, and it's David. David in First Samuel 21. Of course, the most popular madman is the madman at Gadara. That's the one that all of us know was stuck out of his mind. But then we see in First Samuel 21, something very funny happens in First Samuel 21. So um, David goes to if he was run away from Saul. He doesn't read from verse 10 downwards. He runs away from Saul, and he is in Gath, and there's a king called Aschich. Aschich was the king of Gath, or Achis, whatever name, but I usually call it Aschich. So he was the king of Gath, and when David met him, um, there was a word about David that had gone out, that David was the one that slew 10,000 and all of that, tens of thousands and all that. Saul had slain thousands, but David had slain tens of thousands. And so when David heard that was what the king of Gath knew about him, David did what many few people, many people wouldn't do. So David immediately began to pretend that he was crazy, and he acted insane. All right. Scripture says he began to let the drool drop from his mouth, and he was making markings on the door and gate. He was always acting beside himself. And the king of Gath looked at him and said, "This man is insane. Why do you bring him to me?" And so the king of Gath said, "Am I so short of madmen that you have brought this fellow to me here to carry like this in front of him? Must this man come into my house?" And so the king of Gath, of course, chases him out of his presence. And all of that. That's how David escapes being hurt by the king of Gath. So every time I think, especially this season when I was told I was going to be talking about this topic, I began to think a little more, with some more perspective about the Bible's perspective to mental health. And of course, we see when the man met Jesus, of course, the explanation is that he had demons inside of him. But with David's temporary insanity, of course, was an act, but it was also an escape. He used it as an escape from death. Who would who would think that there could be a plus side? Who could who would think? Who would honestly think that there would be a plus side to um, insanity? Who would who would honestly think that there could be that it could be a card that somebody could pull up and could use to come out of a difficult situation, like David used to come out of a difficult situation. And many times, in my few years of pastoring people, I've had different people who have lost their minds in different ways. Even I myself, standing sitting before you, I've had some form of mental breakdown at different points in my life, of which, if time permits me, I'm going to go into a little bit of it. And I've had to help people on different levels, family members, and I mean biological family members. I'm also referring to when I say family members, I'm also referring to spiritual family members, which members of the SWAT Missions Church, people who at different times have had different sorts of mental breakdown. This is one story that I usually like to bring up to clear the air, just make everybody laugh and just say, um, sometimes we might be looking at the conditions from a perspective um, that takes our power away from us instead of it empowering us. And when I'm referring to power now, I'm not yet referring to spiritual power, which is the ability to cast down demons. I know I'm a pastor, but don't put me into that box. All right. I'm not just referring to casting out demons power. And all that. I'm just saying um, there is a perspective that we usually have the mental health that creates a box as opposed to creating, um, um, I'll use the word option, as opposed to creating, I won't use the word freedom, I won't use the word liberty, but I want to use the word option. All right. So there's that first perspective to mental health. Oh, he lost his mind, he's by himself, he's he's in the tombs, cutting himself, crying. But there's another perspective to mental health that is present in scriptures. And you see it as an escape. The perspective is that we are, there's that idea that oh, it just puts people away. But then there's another perspective where it looked like it was used as an escape from some form of death, from a harmful situation. So when you have these two narratives together from the same scriptures, it sort of colors your, I would say, it sort of colors your worldview toward what mental health is, or towards what um, craziness is, as it were. And then you now begin to see that there were some other people in scripture that exhibited some form of insanity. So you see the lady Hannah, the story of Hannah. Hannah is sad. She's obviously depressed. She has her 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 husband, of course, has another wife who has kids. She doesn't have kids. And then the scripture shows us that she goes to go pray. And she's praying weird because the priest, who is head of the environment, hasn't seen something weird like that. He thinks she's drunk. And then when he's seen her pray, but she's mouthing words that nobody can hear. Of course, she gets up and begins to explain it to the priest. And it's obvious. Anybody who has done anything with depression at all, you can see some, from the way she talks to herself, the way she is by herself. They are done. Her husband wants to give her stuff. He wants to give her food. He wants to give her stuff, and she says he doesn't want. She's slowly beginning to decline from human engagement. She's slowly beginning to shy away into some lonely space, and she's talking to herself. And of course, we know she's talking to God. And again, it gives another perspective to um, um, what we would call mental insanity. Um, if you saw Hannah talking by herself, if you saw Hannah like Eli did, Eli thought something was off with her, something was wrong with her. But in reality, she was actually conversing with God. Why am I bringing all of these stories? I'm bringing all the stories together to try and weave that there are different perspectives in scriptures, different perspectives in scriptures for the concept of mental insanity or mental health, or maybe a weak mental health. And all different, yes, the Bible is not exactly centered or focused on mental health, but you could see sparks here and there. You could see it here and there. If you met the prophet Ezekiel, if you met the prophet Ezekiel and you saw the visions that he saw, or you heard him describe the visions that he saw, he sounded like someone who had a bit of schizophrenia or some form of schizophrenia. Wheels within wheels, eyes everywhere. Um, it just sounds like someone that's slowly losing his mind and all. But then those visions, that if Ezekiel stood before a medical doctor and told the medical doctor the images he was seeing, the audio, the visuals he was seeing, the stuff he was hearing, if he stood before a medical doctor, a medical professional, and told the medical professional, "Oh, I saw a creature. The face was the face of a man, but then there was another face of a bird, and he had the face of an eagle, the face of an ox. All right, and it tells you this creature has four faces. It tells you a creature has many eyes. If Ezekiel stood before a mental health practitioner and mentioned all the images he was seeing in his head, you would write a prescription for Ezekiel. Um, he told him he had lost his mind. He was already beginning to sound weird. And somebody told me as he walked, a hand picked him up by the sleeve and took him to the third heavens. It sounds good now because we are Christians and we feel like Ezekiel was a man of God. If Ezekiel was your friend and he started telling you, there's a very weird story in scripture where God tells Ezekiel to boil stuff using human feces. And he begged God. And God said, you know what? Use cow dung. If you had a friend who told you something like that, and the person had already been telling you, they saw, they saw, they saw a hand come from the heavens, pick them up into the third heavens. They saw um, something that was made up of eyes, different eyes, and the eyes, fam, no matter what you are, no matter who you are, if that was told to a doctor today, the doctor would automatically begin to prescribe. Again, you would say Ezekiel was depressed because they were in Babylon, they were in slavery, away from his people, and of course you would link it to religion. That maybe the religion of his people had made him lose his mind. You'd also say that the images he was seeing, you ask him how many voices he was hearing. And Ezekiel would tell you he was hearing a couple of voices because there was one prominent voice. There was one prominent voice, which was the voice of God, in quotes. And then there were other voices he was also hearing. There was the voice of angels, there were the voices of different other spirits that were speaking. Ezekiel was hearing close to, at least, Ezekiel was hearing two voices, at least. And the voices were persistent. You will not be asking Ezekiel, what are the voices telling you to do? And one of the voices is telling me, there was one of the things that the voice told Ezekiel to do. It told Ezekiel to, okay, okay. So you'd say the voice was telling, oh, what are the voices telling you to do? The voices sounded suicidal. You see, the voices are telling Ezekiel to tie himself up. There was a time when Ezekiel was told to lie down on one side of his body for a particular period of time, also told to lie down on that side of his body for the next period of time. And though if you knew Ezekiel, you'd say he had lost his mind. If you knew Mary, you'd say she had lost her mind. How are you pregnant? An angel appeared, told us going to give birth, and all, and here I am, I'm pregnant. It's laughable. It's extremely laughable. It sounds like a delusion. Sounds like a very, very strong delusion. Um, if you if you heard the story of Mary, if anybody here tells me that they're pregnant, and I'm asking who's responsible, and they tell me they saw an angel, I'd laugh. I'd really laugh because it's telltale signs of a delusion. Jesus seemed like a crazy person. Jesus had delusions of grandeur, a messianic complex. He felt he was the one that was going to save the world, and he had again. I'm throwing all of these images in front of you because I'm trying to show you that it's possible that we may be analyzing certain things um, poorly. So I have this thing. I have this. It's called a compulsive need to to check my doors. So if I lock a door, I will many times come back and come check the door. Of course, there are many of anybody online who has experienced something quite like that. And you come back, you check the door, to ensure that the door is locked. And so you could just write in the comment section if you've experienced. The comment section is really, really quiet. You guys, what's going on now? Ginger me now. It is so. Abishe now koto adiyani. It is so. So if you check the doors, you always come back to the doors and all of that. I saw my mom do it. I see myself do it now. Of course, there is a part of me that goes something and goes, no, I'm not going to check the doors. And I ignore. And as I'm walking away from the door, it feels like something's leaving me. And sometimes I just tell myself, no, I'm not going to check, and I just actually leave. And I come back and I mean that the door is locked. Or you feel like you left your gas on, or you feel like you plugged iron that you've not ironed your clothes in the last 4 days. You feel like, oh, you didn't unplug the iron 4 days ago. And then you go back and start beginning to check all the socket. And even having checked, when you go out, you come back again and check. And it happens to a lot of us. It happens to a lot of us. Again, that behavior has saved me from a lot of stress. I remember one time, I left my friends. I had my friend who living in his house, and I just felt like, let's go back and check the gas. And he said, Andrew, this is how you do every day. Turns out that the gas was on, but there was no fire on it. So as I entered in, as I entered in and I touched it, I turned it and I noticed that it was actually open, and the room was smelling. Um, um, okay, okay. Oh, someone that imagines conversions in his head. That's me. I do that a lot too, and I imagine a lot of conversions in my head. So Um, so when we turned off the gas, and on turning off the gas, we noticed that the room was actually smelling of gas. So this dude would have come back home thinking that the gas was turned off. I would have come back home and struck a match and kaboom, like proper kaboom. And also what looked like a compulsive disorder um, saved him. No, there's time too. I used to eat my nails. I've been able to take control over that diet. So I would eat my nails once I get anxious. And, no, and I'm even giving you lighter examples of things that many of us share in common. I'm not even going into very, very deep and quote unquote scary stuff that many of us share in common. Could it be that our perspective to mental health might be, oh, replying in one's head? I do it a lot. If you live with me, there are conversations I have with people that I think I've had with them, and I discovered I've not had with them. Of course, it used to mix shout, but anyways. So like like I said, we 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 sometimes don't realize that even in what we think is a weakness, um, there might be some strength in it. And that's where I want to focus, because we see in scriptures people whom the world would have considered crazy becoming pioneers of faith and achieving many ridiculous things and all. And so maybe that's the first thing I want to say to you, that it's possible that the things that we see as weaknesses, the things that we see as some form of weakness, is actually not as we think they are. Um, of course, there are people who mental insanity messes with their lives, and especially if they don't have adequate care, they don't have care, they don't have understanding, and there's stigma around them, and it could mess with their lives. Yes, but I think that if we begin to see what people refer to as mental insanity with different perspectives, different lenses, realizing that um, maybe what we think is bad may have some usefulness. Ever met some kids who are autistic or have some form of dyslexia or the other. Some of them excel so well at certain other things, in the arts, in statistics, in different things. So, is it possible that our relationship with mental health has been um, like the guy who ran into the tombs to live? Could it be that it is ostracizing? It's something that creates a box and keeps people far away? Or do we have perspective that allows them still be included in um, in the conversation of what humanity is? Jesus walks up to this guy. Like literally, Jesus goes past the place where other people do not pass. Jesus meets this guy and Jesus begins a conversation with this guy. And in that conversation, we see healing coming to this guy. Let's remove all the paparazzi of course demons casted out and all of that. But we see that in the presence of love, healing occurs. Jesus stands before him, all love, and communes with this guy. And at the end of the day, brings succor to this guy. And next thing we see is this guy is sitting in his right state of mind. The guy wants to follow Jesus. Jesus tells him, you have a work to do. Go back to your people. Go back home. Go tell them of the things that the Lord has done for you. And this is the perspective I want us to have as believers, if they are believers here. And you get people that are not Christians, it's fine. But maybe as human beings, towards mental health, um, your friend is able to use his mind in, in ways um, that you're not able to use yours. Whenever I see people who are schizophrenic, I'm in awe of what's happening. Um, the man is standing before us, but there's another world in front of him. He is he is he's seeing things that don't exist. He's hearing things that don't exist. It reveals to me an ability of the mind. Just that ability in his case, he has no control over that ability. Somebody's able to hear things that no other person is hearing. Someone's able to, and I'm not even saying prophetic, I'm just saying the images in the mind of the person, the audio in the mind of the person. It's actually an ability of the mind. That's the mind's ability. And that's the mind's ability at full blast. But that's the mind's ability without control. So the mind is not able to, to tell it to calm down. So those images are taking control over him. Every time I see somebody in some states where they look like they have no control, that's how I see it. I see it as this is the power of the mind, but this is the power of the mind without control. And this is something that many human beings don't get to experience. Don't get to experience the brilliant colors in the mind. Don't get to experience um, the 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 sounds, all right, in the mind. Don't get to experience these experiences. Someone can sit down and they are sitting with you, but they're experiencing something as vivid as though they were there. And I think it's the possibility of the mind. But for people who are maybe, like I'm using schizophrenia, for example, they've lost the control over those images. And of course, the people who are locked up and bound in those images in their minds. And also, the perspective I want us to have when we see people who are going through one difficulty or the other, it's not to create boxes and throw them into it. All right. It's to say, um, is there, can we help? Can we try to understand what's running through the mind of this person? And I notice that many people who have some form of a mental challenge or the other find it very difficult to use their drugs when drugs are prescribed to them. But I noticed that when somebody who understands is in the presence of these people and has conversations with these people and helps them to understand that these drugs are not stealing your magic from you. They're not stealing your your power from you. When I had somebody one time I was talking to, and he told me that the reason why he didn't want to take those drugs was that he loved the world that he saw when he had lost it. And one of the conversations I had with him, then I said, these drugs don't exist to steal from you your magic. If anything, these drugs exist to give you some more control, some more control. Maybe you need to talk to the doctor and ask him, tell him that, oh, it makes me sleep a lot. Maybe he needs to reduce or change the prescription. And then it turns out it became something that he became interested in using the drugs because um, with the drugs now, it looked like there was a partnership between him and his mind. The drugs helped him to create some more control. So he began to love the way he felt when he used the drug, simply because somebody was on hand to say, to give a different perspective. We're not dousing you with drugs because you're crazy. All right. We're dousing you with drugs because, or we're giving you drugs because we think there's something beautiful here, and we want to see how we can give you some more control. And whenever he was out of that phase, I'd ask him questions. What did you see? And he enjoyed the fact that he could have those conversations with me, draw what he saw, describe the things that he saw. And again, I'm not saying everybody has this experience, but I'm saying that if our perspectives were a lot more rounded, if we realize that um, even even bad things sometimes have good uses, like I showed you with David and Astrid, the king of Gath. We may be at a place where we are a little more understanding, um, a little more open to have conversations, we're a little more like we have some more empathy when we meet people who are going through some form of mental health. And also to round this up, so let me speak as one who has had some form of mental challenge. Um, the trick, the trick, um, the trick that I want to um, push out at us is um, because the organ in question is the brain or the hormones, and sometimes fighting against one's hormones and fighting against one's brain is a fight that one almost never wins. And but for me, I think one of the things that helped me a lot um, um, when I was having a little bit of when I was having some form of mental breakdown in a particular season of my life was that there were those 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes where I felt like I wanted to live, I wanted to exist, I wanted to be, I wanted to be here. And what I did in those periods were talk to some of my friends. I was just very lucky to have very good friends. And if you're a guy and you have male friends, male friends make jokes of some of the oddest of things. If you have a male friend and you're a guy, of course, and maybe you have a dead dad, your male friend could probably say something like, so I don't finally chop on a papa or something like that. It just lightens the atmosphere and just makes you laugh about it. I don't know how it works with women, but I know how it works with guys because I'm a guy, and of course I've been that male friend to friends, and I've also had male friends do the same for me and just make jokes, just make silly jokes. And what looked very big in the presence of that joke just begins to look very small. Um, I'd say um, seek out communities, seek out people who understand. There are people like that. There are people like that who it's obvious that they understand. I mean, there's anything that I think changes the game for anybody who is going through any form of mental health issue, it's community. Because what it tries to do is push one away from community, push one away from conversations, push one where one is isolated. But I think um, communities allow us the opportunity to talk, allow us the opportunity to explain how it is doing us in our heads. So maybe I'm proposing saying this conversation should not be a one-off. I'm begging, I'm asking, sister, I went crazy, Vicky. Let this not just be one-offs. Let this be spaces that comes up once in a while. Maybe sometimes it's not facilitators like us. Maybe sometimes it's just an open space like this, and there's no facilitator. I was saying, you're crazy. Just come and talk. Just rant for 20 minutes, rant for 30 minutes, and just pour out how it is doing you in the moment or how it was doing you. And then everybody sends 85,000 naira to your account or 10,000 naira to your account. And then sometimes when you see money, is that for me, I don't know for others. So is that when you see money, your mood just lightens up. Or maybe somebody in your area can say, oh, can we visit? Can we take you out? Can we hang out with you? Can we go to the beach? Or something. Can we? Oh, there's somebody in your area. Oh, okay. Oh, I live around here. And maybe I can. Okay, 2, 3 of us, please don't go alone because some people like to exploit people who are vulnerable. Don't do it. 2, 3 people can go and go visit. They say, oh, let's go out, let's have fun, and then try to lighten up the moods of people. I feel like this is community, and if there's anything that in our faith, Christianity, it says not forsaking the assembling of yourselves. An assembly of yourselves is not just church, this is the assembly of ourselves. So, as I round up, I've said many things. Maybe I'll round up saying that you're not alone. You're not alone going through what is happening in your head. What's happening in your head? You're not the only one that has had it happen in your head. I know that steals your uniqueness from you, but that also brings some form of inclusion. Um, there are many of us who are going through things. Man, if you allow men, I mean guys, to open up and talk about the mental health challenges that we go through, because we don't get to say much, it looks like, oh, he's strong because he has big chest, he has big arms. Man, these conversations are deep for different genders and deep for different people who are doing different stuff. For pastors, the stress we go through pastoring people, for mothers, for new fathers. I mean, the mental challenges that new fathers face. So it's a conversation that every demography of people should have, and spaces where we can come and say, hey, my wife just gave birth, and damn, I feel like dying, I feel like running away. And somebody can hug him and pat him and tell him cry, and try to somewhat allow him to be heard and allow her to be heard. And also, I'd say, um, let's create more conversations like this. Let's support more communities like this. Vic is doing an amazing job bringing all of us together. Let's support more conversations like this where we get to open up and then feel how it's doing you now in your head. If you felt like this conversation was scattered, it's because I went crazy 2 times. Enjoy.
That's wow. Oh my god. Okay. Thank you so much, Pastor. Thank you so much, sir. Um, man, that was amazing. I don't know about you, but that was actually so amazing. When I was doing research for this webinar, actually, there was something Pastor said that I thought about saying. I thought about saying, and I was just like, should I bring this up? Oh, should I not? Should I not? But she really did such a great job of putting that in a way that made sense. And it was how that we often view mental illness as a bad thing, but it's not always a bad thing. And I want to, bring some context to that by saying, um, there's folks like Isaac Newton, who was scientists, have posthumously diagnosed him as, being autistic. There was, a lot of your great artists like Van Gogh. Van Gogh cut off his ears and mailed them to a woman that he liked. So really, actually, the real problem is romance. But let's not go into that. So he cut off his ears and mailed them to a woman he was interested in, and she had like vivid hallucinations. He basically was crazy. But we all agree that Van Gogh is one of the greatest, artists of our century. Same with Newton. What was the man did not go? The man, the man went crazy. Oh my god, so many jokes. But yeah. So mental illness doesn't always have to be a thing painted in a terrible light. Like sometimes it's, if you view it as just a different brain that you can harness, I think we can really, help to build a society that is less stigmatized by, every small thing. Mental illness, God forbid, whatever. Another thing Pastor actually brought up that helped. Honestly, it may not seem like this thing helps, but it helps, was jokes. And I'm a very naturally, I don't know, but I'm hardly ever serious, even though I look serious, but in my head there's always just commentary running. And what's going on? What is going on in this comment section right now? And so I tend to be a very unserious person. And one thing that I feel like helped Audrey a lot, she's coming up next, by the way, was the fact that I was always joking with her. So even when she was, you know, deluded per se, I would say something and then she would laugh and then she would realize that, oh, okay, wait, that actually doesn't sound normal. Because I would just make it sound so ridiculous. I would over exaggerate it or under exaggerate it. And it would appeal to some kind of weird backup reasoning that, like, oh, okay, maybe this doesn't make sense. So honestly, sometimes to avoid having mental health issues in the first place, just don't take life to your chest. Just just sometimes just make a joke of things, just make light of them, just laugh things off. And then finally, he talked about community, and oh my god, that's so important. Actually, Audrey and I are working on building a community for mental health enthusiasts and people who have gone through mental illness, people who are going through mental illness, because people are at different stages of their journey, and just so can find um people can find help basically.